Fear Zone Channel, your channel of horror. Good evening everyone, and now, let's go to today's story, which is from Mr. Francisco, and it happened to him, in the city of Lavras, which is in the state of Minas Gerais, and at that time, which was in the year 2007, Mr. Francisco was just a teenager. And today I will tell you, the surprise I had, when I met a werewolf in the night, and spent much danger with this creature. And it all starts like this. At the time that this story happened to me, I was still a teenager and lived with my parents on a farm, which was on a road near a farm. However, I knew the caretaker of this farm because his son was called Robson, and he was my best friend, and this boy was a teenager too, and we almost always went to school together, and sometimes I even spent the day on the farm where his father worked. But what happened right at night is that I was in my room, almost asleep, and suddenly I started to hear a lot of barking dogs in the distance, and after a while, other dogs started barking from nowhere near the house. With that, curious, I started to look through my bedroom window to the outside in the backyard, and it seemed that there was nothing, so I went back to sleep. When the day dawned, I got ready and went to the farm of my friend Robson, and when I passed this property, I saw that there was a garbage can of the farm with some leftover chickens, which were thrown away. But what happened there is that these remains of chickens were all scattered on the floor, and it seemed that some animal or dog would have made all that mess. As soon as I met my friend Robson, leaving the farm to go to school together, I told him about the chicken scraps. He told me that it was the second time that this had happened on the property, and that it must have been some dog from the street that had done this, and that his father was mad with rage and wanted to capture this beast. Well, we left this story behind and went to school, and my life went on as usual, but after a few days, one night, I was at my friend Robson's house, which was inside the farm, and we were watching TV until dawn, but soon we began to hear many barking dogs, and the strange thing is that the dogs on the street barked, and then they stopped. Then other dogs from the back streets of the farm started barking, and my friend Robson suspected that it could be that beast that messed up the leftover chicken meat from the other day, and Robson's father, who worked on this farm, also during the afternoon, had thrown another batch of leftover chicken in a garbage can on the farm. So, we were looking out the window of the house, in the direction of the garbage cans, and a little while later, to our surprise, a huge animal's figure passed by the farm's fence and went in the direction of the garbage cans. At this time my friend called his father, and the caretaker then took a shotgun, and so, Robson and his father and I were together walking in the backyard of the farm, in the direction of the creature. While we went down to the pasture, that animal noticed our presence there, but to our surprise, that beast waited for nothing, and he came on 4 legs, running towards us at great speed, and it was running very strange. It seemed to be a big ape, and as there was no time for us to run from that huge black beast, the caretaker quickly took his rifle in his hands and shot that creature twice, and that animal ended up falling and rolling on the ground. But even though we were frightened by the beast's attack, Robson's father had his rifle in his hands and was still pointing the gun in the direction of the beast, which had a very bizarre appearance, for it looked like a monkey with big ears, but it also looked like a deformed dog. Even the caretaker didn't want to hurt this animal anymore. Suddenly, the creature started trying to get up from the ground, and to our amazement, this beast stood up, only on 2 legs, and he walked a few meters staggering, as if he were a wounded person, but he fell to the ground. At this time my friend and I, and the caretaker, ran back home, because for us, this strange animal that Robson's father shot twice was a werewolf, because besides being a kind of dog-like creature, it had macabre eyes, because they were lit. The fact was that the caretaker ended up calling the police and told about what happened on the farm. Still, we looked at that creature through the window, and that werewolf was crawling on the ground to try to escape the farm, but as he was very injured, he ended up fainting. After almost half an hour, the police car arrived on the property, and so the father of Robson was talking to the police, and he took these military to where the werewolf was lying on the ground. I was a long distance just watching all that action. Well, I realized that the werewolf was still alive, but already almost dead, and the guards were frightened by what they saw there on the floor, because we could not deny that that animal was a werewolf, but this creature gave his last breath and died. However, to everyone's surprise, the werewolf began to undergo transformations in its body, because by some kind of magic, the werewolf's body began to become less hairy, and the creature's face began to resemble a human face, and after a while, the werewolf became a man. With this event, the cops understood the whole story, in which the caretaker had to shoot the werewolf to stop the werewolf's attack, and also, the cops said that if they had arrived here after the werewolf became a man, they would never believe this werewolf story and would arrest Robson's father. So, the policemen ended up taking the body of this dead man, and they didn't even tell the police headquarters, and these military said not to tell anything of what we saw at dawn, because they wouldn't know what could happen if their superiors knew that there was a dead werewolf around here. Well, we agreed to keep this secret, but anyway, after that frightening nightmare, I became afraid of these woods in my neighborhood, especially at night, because I could run the risk of seeing another werewolf like this any day. The fact that I have told this secret nowadays is that a long time has passed since that occurrence, and until today I don't know what the police did with the body of this man who became a werewolf, and Robson's father, who was the caretaker of this farm. After a few months that he shot the werewolf, he felt bad to continue living and working on this property where the werewolf tragedy ended up happening, and he ended up moving from there, and I don't even know where they went. But to this day, I keep thinking about that day when I was in great danger from the werewolf. I stay smart in the woods here in my region because I know that these creatures exist and these werewolves are real. Thank you for watching the video, and if you like the story, leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Fear Zone Channel, your horror channel. Good evening everyone, and now let's go to today's story, which is from Mr. Marcio, and this happened to him in the city of Barreiras, which is in the state of Bahia, and at that time, which was in the year 1986, Mr. Marcio was 31 years old. And today, I'm going to tell you my story, in which a creature that I had only heard about and thought was only a legend ended up having a terrible experience with a werewolf. And it all starts like this. I live in a rural village in my city, where the houses at that time, many years ago, were far apart from each other, and practically my house was a small farm. But near my neighborhood, there was a creek where I always went to catch some fish. Well, on a Friday, I went fishing in this stream and caught a few fish, and then I took them back to my house and kept them in the refrigerator. The fact is, when it got late at night, I bought some beer, and then I decided to clean the fish. So, I took the fish to the washing tank in my backyard and started to clean the fish. A few minutes passed, and suddenly I heard many barking dogs in the distance, but I didn't pay attention to that. After cleaning all the fish, I took the remains of the fish and threw them into a garbage bag, and I left the garbage bag on the sidewalk in front of my house. But out of nowhere my neighbor's dog started barking. I looked down the street, but saw nothing. Then I went back to get the fish cleaned in the tank, and that's when I saw a shadow resembling an animal, which was on the side of the tank, and it looked like people. I saw that it was a strange creature and that it could be dangerous. I tried to hide, but there was no time for me to hide because the animal saw me, and then it crouched down and stood on 4 legs and began to look at me angrily, and of course I was amazed and afraid of him trying to come after me. But the strange thing about this animal that caught my attention and left me terrified was the glow in his eyes, which seemed lit, and this animal had a demonic appearance. Anyway, as there was a wooden bathroom in the backyard of the house, and it was close to me, I quickly got in there, but it didn't take long, and this beast came close to the bathroom, and this werewolf started walking around, looking for some way to get me. And at this time I was pretty scared, but hoping this creature would give up and go away. I took a closer look at this creature. It looked like a monkey, but its ears were the same as a dog's. It was a huge and bizarre animal. However, this creature knew who I was there inside the bathroom, and this beast, to my surprise, he got up and stood up, only on 2 legs, and at that time I realized that this creature was a real werewolf, and I was even more terrified. But the worst part began to happen, because this beast began to swing and push the bathroom with his hands to destroy it. At that time, I held the bathroom wood, for the beast could not bring it down. The werewolf with his clawed hands held the bathroom wood. Then I saw a piece of wood with a point, like a stake, and quickly grabbed this wood from the ground, and stabbed the werewolf's hand with the tip of the wood, and he roared in pain, and it ran to the backyard, and with the noises, my dogs appeared and came close to me. At that time, as I saw no more werewolf, I took advantage and ran to my house, and then grabbed my hunting rifle, and soon realized that I only had 2 rounds stored. Well, I reloaded the gun, and looked out the window to try to see if the werewolf was still around, but I didn't see anything. After a while, when it was quiet, the creature appeared on the sidewalk in front of home, and he was turning the garbage of the remains of fish to eat. I took advantage of this distraction of the beast, and aimed the gun and shot the werewolf, but the shot failed. Well, I did not want to risk the last ammunition, and would only use it if the creature decided to try to enter the house to attack me. But as luck would have it, the beast caught one of the garbage bags with fish in it, and then the werewolf disappeared and never came back. In the afternoon, I went to the house of a friend of mine, and I got a box of new ammunition, because I did not want to run the risk of finding a werewolf like that in front of me, without having anything to defend myself, because I was very lucky at that time, and managed to stick in the hand of the werewolf with the tip of the wood, and with that I managed to escape from this beast. Soon, a few days passed after the encounter I had with the werewolf, but something strange happened, because one day, I went to buy bread in a quitanda, and while I was walking through my neighborhood, I saw a lot of people gathered in the street, so I got close to see what was happening. Then, I saw a body of a man, and there was a sheet over that corpse that would have been killed by being run over by a car at dawn. I took a good look at the corpse, and his arm was a little bit out of the sheet, and I saw a bruise mark on the dead man's hand, with several points of operation that would have been done in some hospital. After that, I left there and started to think about this whole werewolf thing. I don't know, but that dead man on the road could have something to do with the werewolf that tried to attack me, because I remember I hit the creature with a wooden stake, which was in the same left hand of the werewolf, which coincidentally was the same left hand of the man who died run over, and he had surgery stitches in his hand. To this day, I keep thinking about this scary story of mine, that I happened to have an experience with a werewolf, and to me the man that was run over on the road was the werewolf, and so the driver must have run over this beast on the road at dawn, but I will never forget this horror story. Fear Zone Channel, your channel of terror. Good evening everyone, and now we go to the story of today, which is Mr. Loro, and this happened to him in the city of Cam, which is in the state of Parana, and at that time, that was the year 1997, Mr. Loro had 38 years. And today I will tell you, when a werewolf appeared on my small farm, and it was a situation of extreme danger, where it seemed like a horror story, that I was forced to face this creature, to save my family. And it all starts like this. At that time, I lived in an area of farms and ranches around my town, and what happened one day is that I went to buy some engine parts for my car, and with that, I went to town fast, because I couldn't stay too long with my car stopped, because I used it for my work. However, I bought the parts for my car, and went back to my farm, and started tinkering with the car, and the hours went by, and when evening came I continued tidying up the car, and as it was getting dark I took my flashlight to lighten the place, and I also made 2 fire torches with wooden handles. Well, I managed to fix the car, but there was silence around the place, and it was that suddenly I began to hear some footsteps through the woods near my house, and it seemed that there was someone in the forest, and I got smart about it, and crouched behind the car, but soon the noise stopped, and when I looked in the direction of my house, I saw a huge animal under my bedroom window. My wife appeared at the kitchen window. Well, at that time she warned me to get inside the house, but my wife didn't see that animal, and it was at that moment that creature got up quickly from the ground and stood up like a man, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing, but to make matters worse, that creature started trying to pass through my bedroom window, but the window had iron bars, which prevented the werewolf from getting inside my house. Anyway, I stayed quiet behind my car, just watching the movement of this werewolf. However, this beast was on 4 legs, and going back and forth near my house, looking for some place for him to be able to enter, and to make my fear worse, this werewolf went to the door of my house and started banging on it. I was very scared, because the door could be open, and also, I hadn't seen any of my 2 dogs in the backyard, so, even with fear and desperation, I took a piece of iron pipe and a fire torch in my hand, and went to attack this werewolf, who was trying to open the door of my house, and with the fire torch, this creature was moving backwards on 4 legs, and I saw that the werewolf was a little afraid of the fire, and I tried to open the door handle, but the door was closed, and the werewolf was agitated, trying to find a way to get ahead of me, and I went backwards, and holding the torch in my hand, I went walking through the yard, and the werewolf came after me, and my luck is that the werewolf was afraid of the fire that kept him away, but then I got to the car, and got in the car, and then I started the car, and tried to run over the werewolf, but the creature managed to escape, and he ran away through the back of the farm. I looked for the creature in the backyard, but I didn't see him anymore. After a few minutes I got out of the car, and my wife opened the window and talked to me, and then she opened the door, and I managed to get into the house. Well, I took my hunting rifle, and watched the yard through the window, and my 2 dogs, that were inside the house with my wife, I put them in the yard, to help me watch my place. While I was thinking about this scary story, my wife looked out the window, and she said that she saw the creature passing down the street near our place, and she told us to get off the property. So, with this danger of the werewolf coming back, I took my wife and my son, and we got in the car, and soon we left the property with the car, and went to my uncle's house, who lived in a nearby village, and spent the rest of the night at this relative's house. I told everything that happened to my uncle, and he found this story strange, because a few months ago he had heard that some strange animal had killed several animals on farms in the city, and it could be the werewolf that invaded my farm. The fact is, I spent a few days at my uncle's house, and I only went to my farm during the day, but my wife said that she would no longer return to our small farm, and that I should sell the property. However, my uncle advised me that if we were to sell our farm, it would be good not to tell people the story of the werewolf, because no one would want to buy my farm or want to pay a lower price, and my wife also wanted to return to live in the city. With this, I spent some time at my relative's house and soon sold my farm, but I missed the place very much. But as time went by, today I think that it was crazy living in that isolated place and very dark at night, and today I know that living in the countryside is very dangerous, and it was the best choice I made to live in a normal neighborhood in the city. Anyway, werewolves exist, and if you come across one of them, these creatures will attack you. And before we go to the next horror story, leave your like and subscribe to the channel.